All right. So, remember how last week we were going to do decks of cards and stuff like that? We're just going to pretend like we did that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. That way we don't fall behind. So we're going to move on to the thing that came after that, which was based on the things we learned from that. Shouldn't be a big deal. Most of it's dealing with tables. So we'll fill in a couple of the gaps. How many of you have heard of the game Towers of Hanoi? How many of you have ever played the game?
Beat it.
You beat it? Oh, that's very...
I got a 3DS off of it, so...
You got a 3DS off...
It was on a cruise, so...
Beating Towers of Hanoi?
Game.
How many discs? Just 3 like this?
It was like an arcade game kind of type thing. You had to press the button and it dropped on the...
Yeah. We're going to make that. They actually made this for something to win a 3DS?
Like there was a 3DS, an iPod, and a bunch of...
Like was it speed? Was it timed? Number of moves? What was it?
The smaller it got, the quicker it went. You had to hit the button and try to make it land on the...
Oh, so it was like a convoluted version of this. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're going to create this game in Game Salad. Oh, and for those of you who just walked in a little late, I might stop and start hacking and stuff like that. I'm not contagious. I'm on antibiotics, but I have malaria. True story. All right, so, and one of you gave it to me, I think. Although she said it was a 10-day incubation, so potentially it was Iowa. Is Iowa considered a third world country still? Still. I think it might be a little bit. There's this new TurboTax commercial I've seen on TV a bunch of times that talks about, did you have that big trip, that big business trip to Des Moines? I'm thinking, how big of a business trip could it be to Des Moines? Because, it's third world. Should have drank bottled water there instead of whatever was coming out of the faucet in the hotels. All right, so Towers of Hanoi. As you can see from this game, there's ways to expand it, but the traditional initial version of Towers of Hanoi has 3 towers. These are towers, by the way. Okay, 3 towers, and 3 discs on the very first tower. Notice that we have a big disc, medium-sized disc, and a small disc. Now, the rules are, well, the goal is we want to get all of these discs in the same order on this last tower. But you cannot put a bigger disc on top of a smaller disc. So if I were to move this guy here, I could not put this guy on top. Okay, but I can move this guy here. And then I can move this guy here. I'm not doing this in the most efficient way right now, but that's fine. Just deal. Make sense? So that's what we're going to create. So there's going to be logic associated with it. That is, when we try to put a disk on top of another disk, we need to make sure that it's allowed to go there. Okay? So there's going to be logic associated with that, associated with each of our moves. We're also going to have to keep track of our individual towers. So we're going to have 3 towers and 3 discs. Notice that, well, down here they allow you to, I'll reset it, they allow you to increase the number of discs. But you can also increase the number of towers. So some games have it go up to, 200 discs and, 30 towers. So, you get what I'm saying? So
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have 7.
7 discs or 7 towers?
7 discs.
7 discs, 3 towers? Okay.
7 discs, just 1 tower.
1 tower?
It was a weird version of the game, I guess.
How do you have 1 tower?
So that was the name of the game, 1 tower. You can't punch a disc, hit the button, make sure they land on the tower. If not, you just walk away broke. Blame Carnival, not me.
You're not 21 yet, are you?
No.
Did you cheat and get one of those all-you-can-drink passes on Carnival?
No, this is like the kids' arcade I got this out of.
Did you cheat and get one of those all-you-can-drink passes?
No, I found out I had like a $10 day limit in the arcade.
Did you really?
7 days later. So, $40 later, I walked out with that.
You got 3DS for $40.
No, I guess nobody ever wins because they have the most.
So what is this giant ring that says CUW on it?
Football championship ring.
Yeah.
You guys won a championship?
We won the
Conference
championship this year.
You guys give rings out for anything.
And we died first round of playoffs.
Okay, so you won.
Won our conference.
Division 6A.
Division 3.
Division 3A?
Just 3.
Division 3.
Playoffs.
But just in conference. So what's the is conference?
It's NACC or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
NACC conference.
Well, so the teams you played in that are from like
Illinois in here.
Ozaki County, or it's like Midwest.
Illinois and Wisconsin.
So there's like legit teams you're playing against.
Yeah.
Okay, so winning conference in football.
It's impressive.
Okay, that is actually an impressive.
Yes.
It's a bigger deal in college than it is in high school.
Okay, so it is ring worthy, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I didn't know
Okay.
until I came here.
Weren't you part of the team?
I'm saying, like, in high school, like, if you get conferences, 3 people that can make it through. So over here, it's one and only one makes it out. So that was new to me.
Okay, so you win conference, that gets you into like the national tournament.
playoffs.
Tournament, yeah.
Okay, and then you just got steamrolled in the national tournament by
Basically.
But Platteville, yeah.
Pretty much.
like Platteville.
UW Platteville.
Could you have beaten them, or they were just a
No, we could have beat them.
really? Were you on the team?
Yeah.
Your football. Where's your ring?
It's at home. Took it home this weekend and forgot it.
Well, he doesn't even. He bathes with his ring on.
Yeah, I'm
No.
not going to do that.
That's his loofah.
By the time I take it off.
All right. So, anyways, we're gonna have 3 discs. 3 discs, 3 towers. How would we implement this in Game Salad? Now, for starters, I'm going to say that we're going to have instead of actually being able to drag, which we could do, but I want to keep this relatively simple because I want to focus on the logic side of this rather than the graphic side of this. So rather than drag, I want to be able to say, I want to click a button that says, this is my source. This is my destination. Okay, so if I clicked here for my source, and I click here for my destination, whatever was on the top here will now try to go on to the destination. Does that make sense? And it will just happen, or it won't happen, depending on whether it's allowed to happen or not. Okay? Excuse me. So, how are we going to pull this off? What are some strategies you might consider to begin with? Well, let's kind of play this out. Go ahead.
Couldn't we use tables and then like the length of the X of the box as the table list, and then like so you have 3 different ones and then zeros in the other columns, and then you move it over, and then if it was the newer one was like bigger than the lower one, it wouldn't work. It would if it was higher.
Okay, so let me translate that into human. So you want to create a table. Call this towers. And maybe we have 3 columns for each of our towers. And maybe we have 3 rows for each of our towers. So maybe you want to have a 1.
You have to set the type at the top.
Oh, thank you. In this case, we'll do it as integers. Okay. So you maybe want to create a grid like this. And this is the textual, if you will, version of our towers. This is tower 1, this is tower 2, this is tower 3. Tower 1 currently has a disk with value 3 on it, a disk with value 2 on top of that, a disk with value 1 on top of that. Kind of what you were getting at here? Okay, this is the understandable version of what he was saying. He didn't have the benefit of having the screen here. He had to He still
Improvise.
explained it poorly, but oh, I was well enough to watch that Wisconsin game.
And then afterwards, you were sick again. At least I was.
No, we played a good game. I don't think we should have won that game.
Was that a fight?
We were supposed to
thought-
win that game beforehand, but I actually thought that in the second half, when Kentucky started running away, I thought the game was over.
Mm.
And then the only reason we were even up at the end was because of a bad call, where we really traveled. So I think the right team ended up winning. I think we played I think it was a very entertaining
I was
game.
surprised Florida lost.
Oh, I think everybody was surprised Florida lost. That opens it up. I think Kentucky will win the championship.
The car got flipped in Madison. And Couch got let off.
Well, that's not necessarily surprising.
I just thought the
You were
officiating was inconsistent.
Well, definitely. Kentucky was the more talented team. We were the better team. I mean, that's the problem with Kentucky. They have 5 freshmen
Right.
that are all probably going to go to the NBA and be stars on some teams, in 5 years or something like that. Wisconsin has half of one guy who might go to the NBA.
Everybody in my
Well, they probably have one guy that'll go to the NBA.
1 or 2.
every bracket.
But I think we had the better team. We played well as a team, and I think that's why we were successful in the tournament. But when we came up against that talent, I think we should have lost. I think the right team won. It's hard to say that as a Wisconsin person, but
Yeah.
it was a very entertaining game. I think it was about as good as we could expect without getting lucky and winning. I was very impressed with how we played the first half.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what you want to do for your tables, right? Something along these lines. Now, if we were to select as our source this tower, what that's going to do is it's going to go to the very top of that tower. That is, notice that the defaults on these empty towers are all 0, correct? And probably everybody should pay attention because I'm going to give this to you as homework. Okay, so we have these zeros. So a 0 means an empty slot. That's what we're going to say it is. It's an empty slot. So if we select this tower as our source, we've identified the very top guy because we started here and went down until we hit something that was not a 0. Correct? What if we go all the way to row 3 and we still hit 0? So let's say we selected this as our source. We selected column 2 as our source. Well, is this a valid disk? No. Is this a valid disk? No. Is this a valid disk? No. Then this is not a valid source. That makes sense? Okay. So we're going to select this guy as our source. So we're going to identify this as the disk that we want to move, this very first guy. Then we're going to select this guy as our destination, let's say. Now, where would we put this disk? We would put it 1 row above, well, I guess technically 1 row below, wherever the current last disk is in this guy, right? So as we go through here, we're going to identify what the value of the last disk is. So we're going to check here, here, here. We find out there's actually no disks in here. So there's no logic to check, correct? Therefore, we're going to say it's a fair move. We'll move that 1 to here, and it's no longer here. Make sense? Okay. Now, let's do an illegal move. Mimic that. So we're going to pick this column as our source. So we'll identify this 2. And we'll pick this column as our destination. We'll come down. We're going to find the disk that it's going to go on top of. So 0, not a disk, not a disk. Here's our disk. It's a 1. Then we're going to ask, can we put a 2 on top of a 1? No. Why? Because 2 is greater than 1. But you need to make sure that you check that it's not a 0 first. Does that make sense? Well, actually, do you? Could we put the 1 on top of the 0 before? We could. That was allowed. But 1 is also greater than 0. Okay, so we do need to check against the 0 first. So we say this is illegal. Why? Because the disk we're going to put the 2 on top of is currently smaller than the disk we're trying to place there. That's against the rules. Okay, so if we choose this guy and then say let's put it over here, this guy's empty. We'll place the 2 here. This 2 becomes a 0. Okay? Now, can we move this 3 anywhere? We can't. We can try. We can pick this guy as a source. We can try to drop it here. It should be false. We can try to drop it here. It should be false. Make sense? Okay. What we should do is we should start off with just that logic. Just that logic. Kind of see where we're going with this? So all hard programs are made up of a bunch of easy parts. So rather than trying to figure out who won and all this other stuff, because in the game of Hanoi, Tower of Hanoi rather, the things that are kept track of are the whether or not you've won, whether or not you've hit the goal, and how many moves did it take you to meet that goal. How many legal moves did it take you to make that goal? So we're going to be keeping track of those statistics as well, ultimately. But right now, we just want to see the functionality of having 3 towers and having discs on each of those 3 towers. Now, the actual representation of our towers, the current data representation of our towers, is actually going to be stored inside of this table. Visually, our towers will look the same as this table says they should look. Does that make sense? Now, when we say move the 2 from this tower to this tower, we can do it all in tables. But that doesn't give us any visual representation, right? How do we actually do that if we say, I want to take the disk that used to live here, this guy, and I want, so here's my source, here's my destination, let's just say it's legit. How do we have it make that move? We probably want to have some sort of animation, right? Go ahead.
Wouldn't you want to set it to an actor, so like a certain size, so then you can move the actor?
Okay, so each of our disks is an actor. And so we have this disk object. And maybe one of the attributes of that disk object is width. Something like that, which is already built in to the attributes, right? And the width of that object really that's going to give us the visual that you have this disk, and you have this disk, and you have this disk. Okay, if we're going to go ahead and mimic that right off the bat, let's go to our scenes. How are we going to build our towers? What do our towers initially look like? Just a couple of poles. Okay, will we do that with an actor?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're going to call this Lego. That lets us know this guy isn't real. So we'll drag him out there. We'll change the size of this guy. That's fine. And I'll make sure they're all the same size here in a second. Okay, perfectly spaced down to the pixel. You can see this is all to scale. Are they all the same height too? My vision just went blurry, so I'm really asking.
Height,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, so now we need to actually have some disks. So we're going to create a disk object, a disk actor. Okay. And we'll go ahead and drag one of these guys out here. Now, for right now, I'm going to make our disks a little bit different color. Does this guy not take into account the color? There you go, that's fine. It's a little stupid that the color didn't translate out there. Okay, well, hold on, that's not pixel perfect. There we go. Then we're going to have another one. Now this guy currently has a width of 100. We're going to make his width 67. And then we're going to do one more. And we're going to make his width 33. I'm not sure why we went with 67 instead of 66, but just deal with it. Looks legit enough, right? Okay. Now, for starters, we want to build in some logic so that our discs have different colors, depending on their size. You know, because we obviously want our game to look every bit as cool as this one. I mean, this is Xbox One type PS4 level graphics. Okay, so we're going to build in some logic into our disk. Based on the width of the disk, it's either going to be 100, 67, or 33. Based on the width, it's going to be a different color. What colors do we have here? We have orange, green, chartreuse, no, like a light pink.
Yeah.
So I was going to say chartreuse pink, but that would be like somewhere between pink and hot pink.
Yeah, it's not that.
It's not that, right? This is like a
Pale.
This is a who? Baby pink. Is that a real color?
Now it is.
Totally is a real color. Oh, I need more coffee. 1 second.
Maybe it's the coffee that's doing it.
The sucky thing is I have to teach my grad class tonight too.
Ooh.
4 hours like this. What was I saying? Oh, okay. When we run this, we want it based on its size. We want it to have a different color. So notice that this guy has a color attribute. All right. So let's see if we can change the color based on the size. So we're going to put a rule in here. We're doing this at the actor level. We're going to say if this actors size. If the size width is equal to 100, then what are we going to do? We're going to change an attribute. There actually might be a change color. Nope. Change attribute, this disk's color. We're going to have to change all three of the colors, which kind of sucks. But
Why would you have to change all three?
well, this is red, green, blue. So you're giving it a,
Oh, okay, yeah.
unless we just decided, maybe that's what we do. To make this easy, we say that the big disk has a red of 1. We'll hard code them all in there. A green of 0. And a blue of 0. Okay? This is for a red disk. If it's not a red disk, maybe it's what's the next one? A green disk. Our middle disk will be a green disk. So we'll create a rule. We'll drop this guy inside here. Else if our actors width is equal to 67. And what we can actually do is we can say if this guy is equal to 100, do this. Else, if it's less than 100, we can say do this. We can see the spill-through effect of if, else, ifs. So if we ask a question, we're only going to get into one of these. We know that our biggest disk has a size of 100, a width of 100, right? If we fail this question, we ask, is the size 100? If it's not the biggest one. So we're going to drop down to the else, this otherwise. Else, if it's less than 100, will less than 100 work?
Well, it'll do both of them.
It'll make both of them the next color, right?
So you'll just have to make another one that says.
I'm going to go ahead and put my other rule in here. Create a rule. Here, for right now, we'll say this. If it's equal to 33, do something. If it's equal to 67, do something, and then I'll tell you what the issue is. So we're saying if it's 100, do one thing. If it's a 67, do something else. If it's a 33, do something else. What if we, outside of this logic, decided to change the width of our disks? Let's say that we just haphazardly decided, this guy really should be 66 instead of 67.
You have to reset it.
We'd have to go in and change our code. Is there a generic version of the code that we can write? Go ahead.
Couldn't you say greater than or equal to 100 is red, less than, or you could say greater than. Oh wait, no, that won't work.
Wouldn't you have to use the instances of the actors?
Instances of the actors. Okay, tell me about that.
Because since you changed the width, each instance of that actor is a different size.
Yeah.
So you'd have to you'd have to use the instance of that actor. Wouldn't you have to code it use? I don't know how to explain it. Use each instance of the actor to check its width. And each actor would be a different color based on.
Okay, so maybe, let me see if I can translate again what you're saying into human. You're saying that in our game we have 3 instances of our disk, right? And you want to look at those 3 specific instances and figure out which one's the biggest one, which one's the second biggest one, and which one's the third biggest one, right? And based on those sizes, those exact sizes at runtime, you want to change the questions we're asking. So if the biggest disk was 132, you're going to say if it's equal to 132, make it this color. If it's equal to the size of the biggest one, okay, that's fair enough. You could do it that way. In fact, now keep in mind what we're trying to, what I'm really trying to give an example of here is how much can we hard code an example like this versus how much do we need to make generic. I've given you the initial information that we will have exactly 3 towers and exactly 3 disks, correct? Given that, his solution is probably the most generic. He knows that there are exactly 3 disks in our scene at any point in time. Therefore, he can go and access the individual instances of those 3 disks and get their sizes and say, okay, I've determined that this guy is the biggest one, this guy's the second biggest one, this guy's the third biggest one. I know what their sizes are. Now I'm just going to make sure they're different colors. Certainly could do that. Make sense? Now, for simplicity's sake here, we're just going to hard code in the numbers because we know what the size is. But what he's saying is accessing those individual instances would work. But how do we access those individual instances? So instead of actually doing it, I'm going to ask you, how would we do it? He wants to grab this instance, and this instance to get their widths. How can we access these individual instances? Who knows about those instances? The scene. So we need to access that through somebody in the scene. That makes sense? How would we do that?
Could we use a table for that? Hypothetically.
Okay. How would you use the table for that?
You could have a rule within the actors that says put this value into the table and have the table sort them by size. Maybe that wouldn't work at all.
Well, you could certainly do that. That would really be solving the problem a different way. He wants to access the individual instances and go that direction, where I think, if I'm understanding what you're saying, you want to load in the widths into the table and have the disks become those widths. Is that okay? Well, we could do that as well. Similarly, we could also have 3 global attributes for the widths as well. Now, and I'm not necessarily sure which. Yours is still probably more generic. Yours is more along the lines of where we're going with tables. We're going to end up doing this the easiest way anyways. But how would we access these individual instances? This is more of a playing within the matrix question. If I need to ask questions of each of these individual instances of these disks, how would I do that? Who knows about them? The scene knows about them. So I would need to be dealing with an individual instance within the scene in order to access those other guys, right? In game design, these are often called observers. These exist in almost all video games. You don't see them, but there's invisible objects in the game that observe. Know the crap that's going on. This guy is in the scene, correct? And if I go in and I edit this guy's rules, and I ask about an attribute of the current scenes, layers, backgrounds, here's our 3 disks. I can give them individual names. But this guy knows about the 3 different disks that are in this, that are in the scene. That makes sense? But he had to be in the scene first. So kind of keep that in mind, because that might be something that we need to put into play as part of our game here. Okay? Something that is in our game that can observe the state of the game at any point in time. Now, so that's one hint. A conflicting hint with that, so you have to decide which way we're going to go here, is the way I'm already starting to explain this, the way that he suggested we solve this problem is through tables, where our game itself is visual only. What we see is visual only. All the logic is actually happening behind the scenes on a little table, correct? Like, we're not actually detecting, is this disc bigger than this disc and can he go on top of this one? We're not doing that based on that. We're asking our table. We're saying, table column 1, table column 2, where's the top disc there? Can this guy go on top of this numerically? If yes, then make it visually happen. Make sense? Okay, so we would have to decide, do we need an observer for that type of situation? Punchline here is that if you need to accomplish something inside of the scene where we need to actually know about those instances, you need to have an invisible actor. Well, I guess he doesn't have to be invisible, but if you're playing your video game and there's like a weird white box somewhere randomly on the screen, it's like, what the heck is that? You know, first of all, it's a pretty low budget game, but games have bugs today. I'm out of coffee. All right, good. What was I talking about? Oh, in any case, having observers is a real part of any sort of game design. Okay, and this translates into our normal Java programs as well. So outside of game design, in order to have access to the individual instances that you have to be within the same context as those instances. Okay? So this goes with variable scope, this goes with contexts. All these things are related. We're thinking about it from a visual video game perspective in here. Next semester, we'll be focusing on the same concepts, but at a less visual, more boring, but more beneficial way of doing things. Like I promise you, nobody created Battlefield or whatever your favorite video game is using Game Salad. Okay, it's a limited tool that allows us to explore certain things, but doesn't really allow us to go where we ultimately want to be. But it's a good first step for the logic. So observers are an important part because sometimes we need to know what's actually happening in the scene. And in order to do that, we need to have, a spy somewhere on the scene who can see what's actually going on. The generic guys over here, the blueprints, they don't know the actual state of the scene. They only know about themselves. Make sense? Okay, so I'll take the observer out for right now. We don't need him right now. But that might be how we accomplish what he's asking. So maybe the observer has some logic that says, okay, game started, let me assess the current state of the board, look at the 3 discs on the board, find out their sizes, and change their colors appropriately. Okay. Good.
Would it not be easier to just change the color in the individual instance of the actor?
Ah,
Because I think we're just making this way too complicated.
okay. That's an excellent point. So we had all this stuff inside of disk that said, if I'm a disk and I'm size 100, change my color to this. If I'm a disk and I'm size 67, change my color to something else. If I'm a disk and I'm size 33, change my color to something else. Well, I can do that. But if we're going to go as far as to say, we know exactly what our size is, why not change the color in the individual actors? That comes down to that difference between what can we assume needs to be generic versus what can we just assume can be hard-coded. These guys are actual actors. They look the way they're going to look. They're in our game. That's it. Okay? So it's an excellent point. We really don't need any of this stuff. If we want to have 3 different colored discs, we'll go in here, and what color should this guy be? Baby pink? That's our color?
This is the middle one, so
Is that it? Is that baby pink? Is that baby pink?
just go.
I think that one in the bottom row.
Oh, baby pink. Got it. Okay, baby pink. Then we have a
Yellowish.
kind of an olive, a green olive green. We got that here? No, it's not going to cut it.
What kind of asparagus do they use?
Make it lighter.
Right there. Nailed it. All right. And finally,
Orange.
a pumpkin orange.
Mm-hmm. Ah,
Close.
close.
I think that's it. Kind of a burnt pumpkin orange. Oh, it looks identical. Hey. Okay, so there's our towers. Ready to put in the App Store, of course. Now, we want to have some buttons up here for source and destination, correct? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a button. We're going to call this guy a toggle button. This guy has a size 100 by 35. Might actually want to make these guys a little bit, oh, maybe not. I think it'll work. I'm going to have it float right about there, though. So we need to look at position. Y is 216, 215.
About 140.
Well, 215 is the most important part. We just want to know where they... Okay, so we have 3 buttons. When we first start, before you've selected a source, all these buttons should say source on them, right? And as soon as we've selected a source, then the other 2 buttons should then show possible destinations. That make sense? We could actually build some logic in here and cheat and say the only possible destinations are these, which would be kind of an interesting thing, but we'd rather allow people to make mistakes than laugh at them. I'm thinking the type thing where if you make, like back in our game over here, if you make a mistake, it just goes back. I'm thinking maybe more of kind of a guillotine type of effect in our... Wasn't there some game on, I think iPhone, where you had to tap the screen and you had to tap quick enough, otherwise it cut your finger off? I think it was called Finger Slicer. Have you ever download that? Really? Only me?
I don't have an iPhone.
I think this was either 2 or 3 years ago in this class. Based on that, it was like the popular games back then. You know how like Flappy Birds is popular now. It was that kind of game, but it was like cut your finger off, and then it showed this mangled finger or whatever. Well, this student, I actually probably have the game on here. Let me see. Let me see if I have this real quick. His game might have been called Finger Slicer. So this is one of your fellow students wrote this game. His name's Mark Jamber. I may have deleted it. Jamber, J-A-M. Oh, here, Mark Jamber work.
Finger
Finger
slicer.
slasher.
Up,
Up,
up, up, up, up.
Hey.
All right, so now the funny thing is this was rejected by Apple like 5 different times, and finally they said stop submitting it because of gore or something like that. So you play this game. I don't remember. I got to remember how to play it. So I think you like drag this guy around, and you have to miss the miss the spinning saws. Let's go and get hit. Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe he took. I think we're looking at a very muted version of this right now, because what he had, because we kept trying to dumb it, baby it down for general audiences. He had this like mangled, like lifelike finger, and it showed up. It was.
Maybe that's the physics-based one.
Should we try it?
Yeah.
Oh!
Oh.
You good? You got this.
Wait, why is it counting down?
I don't know.
Oh, they're all gonna come at you.
Survival.
Oh.
That escalated.
Let's see. Maybe he didn't adjust this one. Let's get killed. Boom!
See the pictures.
Wait,
down.
there's a
The
game
pictures
over
down
sign
there.
in the scenes.
Right down.
Yeah,
there.
the
Where's this
picture.
game over? It's
It's not loading the picture.
Well, I know he took that out. Hold on, let's.
Is this in the thumbnail?
Images.
Yeah, shredded.
There we go.
Oh.
There we go.
Rejected by Apple.
I think I've seen that picture before.
He's a senior this semester, by the way. So, and actually, interestingly enough, any of you know Mark Jamber?
Yeah.
So earlier this year, he was making videos. I think he had one of his friends pepper spray him in the eyes.
Oh yeah.
And then we talked about making a viral video about when I say me, I was not involved. About getting tased. Yeah, he's got issues. Very, very intelligent though. So if any of you are looking for like a tutor, he's really smart. Just
Enjoys putting himself through pain.
well, no, he's really into physics stuff. Like him and a buddy of his were working on a computer-aided routing machine. So he wrote some software that connected to a piece of hardware, a router that went through and like traced out, die cut stuff of certain shapes at a certain resolution. So he kind of gets these interesting ideas and decides, hey, let's go and invent something that mimics it. So I mean, really, it's kind of the weird scientist or the mad scientist type guy. Focuses on the things he likes, doesn't focus on the things he doesn't. He also, I think, makes Halo armor.
Didn't he also help his friend make that bike that's supposed to be like the new form of transportation in Milwaukee?
Possibly. Those are the types of things Mark gets involved in. Yeah, I mean, he's a neat guy. He's a weird guy, but he's a very neat guy. If you don't know Mark, you should just go in with the expectation he's a little bit off. But he's a really good guy. I've known him for years. Well, I've known him for, I guess, 4 years. But okay. So in any case, in our last minute here, just let's tee it up for next class. So we're going to have 3 different buttons. Initially, each of these buttons should say source. As soon as we select one of them, only the other 2 become possible destinations, right? So we're going to need those guys to now say destination. Then we select our destination, then we do the check, and then we actually have the move occur. Okay, so what we'll have to do on Wednesday, is we'll have to determine, well, hopefully not next Monday. What we'll do on Wednesday is we're going to make those buttons clickable, easy enough. We've done that a bunch of times, right? Have the text change based on when they've been clicked, and then also do the logic check, and then finally actually have an animation where the disk moves to the correct table, the correct tower, if it's supposed to. Make sense? All right. I will see everybody on Wednesday.
Yeah, that just seemed like it was getting way too complicated.
No, you went exactly where I wanted you to go. No, it's perfect.
Cool. Get well, huh?
I'm. If you would have seen me this weekend, I was so sick.
Yeah.
I usually would not miss class due to sickness. I have to be really sick. I couldn't even get dressed 2 of the days.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it was. And like this new game just came out, Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, my little brother asked me to buy that for
Yeah, it's really good. I've been playing it, but 2 of those days I was too sick to sit in front of my computer to play a video game.
See, I missed the first half of the Badger game.
And then all last week was our final major in Golf Simulator League.
Yeah?
And had I won, I had let's call it a 50-50 chance of winning the whole season's league. And they couldn't play.
Couldn't go.
Every day I kept saying, hey, can I try to do my league play tomorrow? Can I do my league? Tried to do it even on Saturday, and I couldn't get out of the house. So missed out. Just like Tiger Woods, he's missing the Masters this week. I couldn't close the deal. Season-long points race, all winter long. I had myself in 3rd place with a win. I could win it. Done. Garbage.
Yeah. Better luck next time, right?
Well, it's not going to wait till next winter.
You got to find something else to do. Well, you've got Elder Scrolls Online now. And
It is
that
a really...
Hearthstone.
Yeah, the card game is Hearthstone. Elder Scrolls Online is really good.
Yeah.
I played WoW quite a bit, and so you go in kind of expecting it, every new MMO that comes out, you're like, oh, is this going to be as good as WoW? Is this going to be? This is the first one that I think legitimately can compete with WoW. It's very different. It's so much more complex.
Oh, yeah.
Like the learning curve for it is ridiculous. But what's neat about it is crafting means something. In WoW, the best stuff in the game is drops from dungeons and stuff. In this game, being the best craftsman means something. You can make the best stuff in the game. So they've made it, and some of the things that were conveniences in WoW, they've taken out. Like WoW had an auction house.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to be in traders guilds, just like it might be if you were in medieval times. Like, I am the best bowman, the bow maker in the world, or whatever, and people come to me for my bows and blah blah blah. So it's really neat the different paths you can take to build your guys. So
I've always kind of stayed away from the MMOs because I'm not a huge fan of monthly fees. But
and that's the interesting thing is new ones have come out recently. Kind of the new model is free to play.
yeah,
I
I play War Thunder, but
And this one took a lot of flack because this had an upfront cost. So usually it's either upfront cost and then free to play, or no upfront cost, monthly fee. This one's upfront cost plus monthly fee. You get your first 30 days free.
right.
As long as they keep releasing content, the quality of this game is definitely there to be worth the $15 a month.
Right.
The amount of content that's in the game right now is ridiculous. It's huge.
Yeah.
So I'd highly recommend it.
All right.
But how old's your little brother?
17.
Well, he's in the gamer age. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's actually, it might be less of a learning curve for him because I was
Yeah.
having to unlearn the WoW version of things. But even now, I feel like I only understand about 60% of the stuff. You know, like it's
It's big.
well, not just big, but like, you know, not real good tutorials. You know, you kind of get into the game, you're like, well, how am I supposed to do this? And you almost have to ask around, but
Yeah.
not unlike what you'd have to do in the real world. Somebody dumps you in this medieval thing and you're a level 1, like you have to ask around,
Yeah.
right? So I don't know, if you look at it from that perspective, it becomes interesting.
All right. Might have to check it out.